Okay, colleagues, I guess in keeping with the time set out, we will start our program. Welcome to this webinar on evaluation capacity building for Parliament, the case of the Philippines, Uganda, and APNODE. My name is Parfait Kasongo, and I am the communications coordinator for Twendembele. Twendembele is a multilateral peer learning program of African governments that seeks to promote and institutionalize empathy in governance processes to improve accountability and performance. The ultimate aim of the program is for improved government performance, which in turn will result in better outcomes for African populations. Twendembele partners include Ghana, Uganda, Kenya, South Africa, Benin, and Niger, and also two technical partners in Clear AA and IDEF. As public sector institutions, parliaments have a fundamental role of ensuring an open and free political deliberations that represent citizens through the core functions of legislation development, representation, and executive performance and oversight. This essentially means that parliaments sit at the center of a web of domestic accountability. They hold the executive of government to account on behalf of the people, ensuring government policies and actions are both efficient and effective. Despite all the interventions that promote evidence use, in parliamentary functions, the mainstream of evidence use in parliamentary roles remains slow. This is mainly due to the following challenges, which include high personnel turnover due to the electoral nature, a lack of demand, slow uptake in different types of evidence, and lack of resources. The aim of this webinar will be to provide a platform for parliamentary stakeholders to make a case for investment in evaluation capacity in parliaments. This webinar will also highlight the capacity development efforts in parliamentary space with some of the challenges that is faced thereby. Both the users and generators of evidence. Recommendations on key evaluation capacity development interventions needed by parliamentarians and parliamentary staff to build on evaluative culture and evaluations will also be brought to the fore for us to discuss today. Today, we have three speakers at this stage, two for now. First, we have Dr. Miral, who is from the Philippines, and he's currently the Director General of Congressional Policy and Budget Research Department. His career is in government, spans more than 3 decades, and most of it is spent in the House of Representatives Secretariat. Dr. Miral's professional interests include public expenditure management, national government budgeting, tax policy administration, and intergovernmental fiscal relations. He served as a lecturer at the School of Economics and National College of Public Administration, Governance of the University of Philippines. Dr. Miral obtained his bachelor's degree from the University of Philippines and his PhD in economics from the University of the Australian National University. Welcome, Dr. Miral.
Thank you. And thank you very much for this opportunity to participate in this webinar. I'll I'll give a short presentation and I'll share my screen. Okay. Yes, in the Philippines, the government has actually these major tools for promoting development. We have each administration, which has a 6-year term, has always formulate a medium-term development plan that spans 6 years. And every year, we pass a national budget that contains the programs and projects to implement the policies and programs identified in the development plan. We also recognize the importance of monitoring and evaluation. But as I will show later on, we still are in the process of strengthening monitoring and evaluation, and which somehow provides an indication of the level of success that we have with regards to our development planning and budgeting exercise. Um, okay, think I will let's skip this. So in the case of the Philippines, we recognize the importance of monitoring and evaluation, and there have been several issuances that seeks to institutionalize the practice of monitoring and evaluation. And here I documented some of these issuances starting in 1987, but it even these issuances have can also be traced even earlier. But 1987 is the start of marks the passage of or the ratification of our constitutions that we are operating now, the 1987 Philippine Constitution. And the operating under that constitution, it recognizes the importance of planning and budgeting as well, but the monitoring evaluation is not actually not clearly stated in the in the constitution, but the issuances there were several issuances to use monitoring and evaluation in order to carry out the plan and our budgeting system. But unfortunately, even with these issuances, I'll note that there are several limitations as of now. Firstly, the current monitoring and evaluation system is mainly confined to the executive branch. So there's a system that requires reporting and generation of reports, but this is basically confined within the executive branch. And it's mainly focused on project completion, implementation of programs and projects, and not enough focus on results. And as such, there's inadequate and poor quality data, and the system is highly fragmented with the data mainly confined within the different agencies, and there's no integrated data that would provide an overall picture of the implementation of development plan and the implementation of the budget, except for financial information. But when it comes to the output and the outcomes or the results that we would expect from the budget and from the plan, there are no systematic uh, or integrated or data that we can readily access. And there's no clear agency or lead agency that drives the process. But basically, we have the National Economic Development Authority, our planning agency, and the Department of Budget and Management to have issuances on this regard, including the Department of Interior and Local Government, which supervises our local governments. So these are the main agencies that leads the monitoring and evaluation in terms of issuing the different guidelines. But there's no lead agency, and the system is to be really fragmented with very uneven level of capacity in the different agencies. And as of now, there's very weak appreciation and understanding of monitoring and evaluation, although many of our legislation that we pass always would mention that the need for monitoring and evaluation, a mandate for monitoring and evaluation to be carried out, but there's no established system as of now that we can consider as an integrated national system that covers the different levels of government and covering all branches of government. And but we recognize that monitoring and evaluation is very important. It supports government in its planning. It informs the budget, and it helps manage. It helps the management of ongoing programs and projects. and it also provides the accountability mechanism. And but when it comes to Congress, I think that monitoring evaluation is very much relevant, and the Congress is also a very critical player in this in the development process, as it enacts the necessary laws and legislation. It oversees the implementation of the legislations and the programs, projects contained in the budget. And as that's why oversight is still a very important function of Congress, as well as representation. We know that the demand side is very important also, not only the supply side, which is when we talk about the market, we need to balance the supply and the demand. And when it comes to public goods, it's Congress that actually represents the demand side. So it's this representation function of Congress is very important, especially when we talk about accountability. And so, since Congress is not very much a part yet of the monitoring and evaluation system, it has difficulty in conducting its oversight function. And in this regard, we have undertaken a series of initiatives. First, we have drafted a bill that would institutionalize a national evaluation policy that will cover all branches of government, possibly all levels of government, including these local government. And in order to promote support to this bill, we have conducted several forums on national evaluation policy in partnership with the support of the UNICEF, UNICEF Philippines, which is very strong in terms of evaluation. And in various committee hearings, we have pitched for the importance of monitoring and evaluation, because we think that it should really be a part of all legislation, that part of the implementation would require a process of monitoring and evaluation. And so our office have also pushed for the inclusion of this the legislation of the National Evaluation Policy as one of the priority legislation. And for capacity building, we have participated in trainings and conferences. And actually, just last year, we helped organize a regional conference here in Manila, where the Asia Pacific Evaluation Evaluation Conference, that help us encourage or increase the awareness and appreciation of our legislators for monitoring and evaluation. So finally, I think this is my last slide. We think that the development of evaluation capacity is very important, and Congress has a very important role to play in strengthening monitoring and evaluation in order to improve the planning and budgeting process and enhance the overall quality of governance. And we think that a legislated national evaluation policy is important in order to that it would cover all branches of government, that will promote a common understanding of the goals to be pursued, and clarify the mandates and responsibilities of the different players, as well as to provide high-level guidance to institutionalize the best practices and methods. We think that the capacity building should be designed and carried out with the goal of building an integrated monitoring and evaluation system that cover all branches and levels of government, with clear data and information to be produced and how this data and information are to be used, with defined roles and responsibilities of the different actors and players, and with clear procedures and process to guide them, and of course with the requisite training to build the capacity of the different players. I think that's where my presentation ends, and I'll be happy to discuss in greater detail some of the slides that I have presented. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you very much, Dr. Miral, for keeping your presentation nice and short. We recognize from according to your presentation that there's not necessarily, the Constitution does not necessarily speak to M&E. So that obviously has created the issue around the uptake of M&E as a source of evidence, not just in Parliament or Congress, but also in the different levels of government. We recognize also, or we take note rather of that the executive is the only one with that's been doing M&E in the Philippines. We also take note that UNICEF is a partner or has been a partner with the Congress of the Philippines to bring about a draft bill of M&E to be done in all the different levels of government. Thank you. We thank you for your presentation again. Now I'd like to welcome Ms. Josephine Watera, but before she comes on, I'd just like to read through her very long, but I'll keep it short. This is her bio. So Ms. Josephine is a seasoned evaluator with 17 years working experience in strengthening evidence use. She is an assistant director in the research service and a previous head of monitoring and evaluations division in the Parliament of Uganda. Ms. Josephine is a PhD candidate for program evaluations at the University of Cape Town. She holds membership, including as vice president of the Uganda Evaluations Association. She has been recognized on numerous occasions for her work in evaluations and has many awards to attest to that, including the African Evidence Leadership Award. Ms. Watera, welcome, and you're welcome to present, ma'am. Thank you.
Very much, and I want to thank the members for this opportunity. I'm trying to share the screen. Okay, I'll talk off the slides for now.
Sounds good.
And then it's coming through.
All right.
So my start of this discussion is to first step back and reflect on what ECB means, because we may assume that everyone understands this who is on the call. So it is an intentional process to increase individual motivation, knowledge, and skills to enhance group organizations' ability to conduct or use evaluation. And our conversation today is about Parliament as the organizations that we are referring to here, and why this discussion is even more important at the time is that we have SDG 16 that calls on strong institutions, and Parliament is at the center of this. When you look at SDG 16.3, it says promote the rule of law and ensure equal access to justice, which is one of the core roles of Parliament in terms of enacting legislation, and then develop effective, accountable and transparent institutions, which is our oversight mandate, which is 16.6 of the targets of SDG 16. And then 16.7 says ensure responsive, inclusive and representative decision-making, which is the representation Parliament. So for us to be able to undertake all these that is provided, we need a strong M&E system, M&E setups and appreciation of M&E in Parliament. And that's why we need to build this capacity as much as we can. Again, we step back to the core functions of Parliament. And we know that for policies to be established, we need to have, we we need to have rigorous evaluation reports, evaluation data that can guide us to see the extent to which these reports have been prepared and programs have been implemented. When we are passing legislation, we want to test how the previous legislations have worked. And so these are some of the calls or demands that make us see the importance of evaluation capacity building. And then when you go to what are some of the specific use of evaluations in Parliament, we see evaluation is key in supporting the justification of introduction, amendment, and policy legislation. It helps us to ascertain views from the public on influential stakeholders, funders, technical experts, and beneficiaries of groups. It supports us in communicating impact of specific programs and initiatives. And also it's a methodology to, good governance for us to be able to conduct strong evaluations for within the institution, and also that capacity being within us. So in terms of what are some of the notable initiatives, I'll pick some of the notable initiatives globally that Parliament of Uganda has been part of. And one of these is the Global Parliamentary Forum on Evaluation. So this was launched in Nepal in 2015, and it aims at advancing the enabling environment for national-owned, transparent, systematic, and standard evaluation processes to improve the use and demand of evaluation. So this is one of the initiatives that brings together, it's a network or platform that brings together parliamentarians at the global level. And then we have the Africa version of this network, which is the APNODE, the Africa Parliamentary Network on Development Evaluation. This was found in 2014. And again, it's to bring together to enhance the capacity of African parliamentarians to improve their oversight, policy making, and decision making in the aspects of evaluation. One critical tool also that I can't let go as we engage in this conversation is the IPU toolkit. So in 2008, the Interparliamentary Unions designed a self-assessment toolkit aimed at assisting parliaments and their members in assessing how their parliaments are performing against widely accepted criteria for democratic parliaments, so that to identify priorities and means for strengthening parliament. So this is more of an internal self-assessment engagement, but also it's an evaluation capacity building initiative so that we also do self-reflection. The other last two that I'm going to talk about is the Colombo Declaration, which Parliament of Uganda is a signatory. And this declaration that was done in 2018 in Sri Lanka is also a commitment by different parliaments. We had more than around 120 participation of countries in this declaration to commit to strengthen the evaluation capacity within these parliamentary institutions. And lastly is the Yaoundé Declaration, also which is about the parliamentarians in evaluation, and it recognizes the important function of evaluation in national decision making, and also a way of strengthening effective and inclusive development and growth. So I'll go to some of the specific initiatives that Parliament has undertaken as Parliament of Uganda. So one of these is that we have departments that are mandated specifically or exclusively to provide M&E function within the institution. We have the research department where I sit, and it undertakes external evaluation in terms of government programs. So we undertake process evaluation, we'll undertake formative evaluations, midterm evaluations for government programs, and report this to committees of parliament, to individual members of parliament who sometimes make these requests. And then we have the budget department that undertakes evaluations for government for purposes of the budget, to see to what extent the budget has been effectively implemented, the national budget. And then the Department of Corporate Planning and Strategy undertakes the internal evaluation of the institution to see how strong we are standing in the execution of our mandate as an institution. And then we have a strong ICT infrastructure. It's called Alfresco system that enables us to upload all documentation. Parliament of Uganda is a green parliament, so every discussion, every time Parliament is having its debates, uploaded on Alfresco system, and members of Parliament have access to iPads where they can debate. So this is an important ICT infrastructure. And then we have also a database under the research department that can be accessed even by the public to see some of the evaluations that we have already undertaken. We also operate a digitized library, so a lot of information that requires synthesis or access by the technical departments can be accessed through the digitized library. We have strong M&E tools. We customized the self-assessment tool that I earlier mentioned for the IPU to fit the Uganda context. And then we have also undertaken assessment using the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association tool on democratic institutions, again, on how Parliament is operating. We have a strong committee system that demands and uses evaluations at different points, and we undertake benchmarking and peer learning with other institutions, specifically parliaments within the region and beyond. We also have APNODE Uganda chapter, and like I said, we are signatories to Colombo Declaration. We have a strong recognition of the role of Parliament in the national policy for public sector monitoring and evaluation of 2013. It specifically designates specific roles that Parliament is supposed to undertake in terms of allocating sufficient resources to the M&D function, but also conducting oversight and monitoring of the government programs on the same. Then we have a strong annual reporting system. As an institution, we report to the Office of the Prime Minister just on the technical aspects of Parliament. We also contribute to the government annual performance report. We report against the implementation of SDGs, and we also report for the Africa Peer Review Mechanism, the segments that relate to Parliament. So these are the areas where we are in terms of both internal and the external engagements of Parliament. And then I go to, so my slides had some indications here of some of the engagements that we have held with peer learning. Some of the partners who have supported Parliament strongly. I will start, of course, with Twende Mbele. We've had a number of workshops and engagements on capacity building of Parliament. And we've had also a peer session, a peer engagement, a project with Clear AA. And these have been useful or instrumental in creating a platform where we share experiences between evaluators and researchers across the different parliaments. This said, how do we move forward from here? So one, we have, I will bring this at 4 levels, the aspect of leadership, culture, and then systems and structures, and lastly, communication of evaluation. These are areas that, as we talk about a case for parliaments, the 4 core areas. And then I'll break this down in terms of evaluation policies and procedures that we need to support parliaments to have strong evaluation policies and procedures for them to know how to undertake this function. Establishing of evaluation frameworks. So for us as an institution, we have an M&E framework situated within our strategic plan that provides how the evaluation function is supposed to be undertaken and the different kind of reports that we can produce. And then resources dedicated to evaluation. So even when we have the departments that I've mentioned, the resources are really not that sufficient. Sometimes when we need to undertake studies, especially like the post-legislative scrutiny, which is about the impact assessment of how laws have been implemented. Sometimes we don't have the sufficient budget with us to undertake this. And then facilitate use of evaluation findings. Sometimes, of course, there are those political aspects that draw in. Even when evaluation is on the table, sometimes it may not be like taken in. And that's how we go to the next, the whole aspect of building a shared evaluation belief and commitment that when evaluation has been undertaken and we have findings on the table, institutions should appreciate and take this. Another important one is integrating knowledge management evaluation systems. So I've mentioned that we have the Alfresco, where every document that relates to Parliament can be accessed, though it is an internal one, not accessed by external parties. but at least it's a starting point. We have a knowledge management system, and also we have the database that is managed by the research department, and this one is open accessed even by the public. And then the strategic plan for evaluation, so that we are able to understand the dynamics that we are and how we want to proceed from here. Says that we could touch on as we talk about strengthening our capacities for ECD within the institutions of Parliament. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Josephine. And we apologize again that you were unable to share your presentation. Just to bring some few notes from your presentation, it's good to see that the Ugandan Parliament is inspired by the SDG 16, those millennial goals. And also it's good to note that Ugandan Parliament is a member of the Global Parliamentary Network and APNODE. That also the Ugandan Parliament are signatories to the Colombo Declarations, which were in 2018, as you point out. And that also the Ugandan Parliament is cognizant of the issues of global warming and going green with the paperless sittings of Parliament. We take note of that too. Now I'd like to invite our participants to give us some questions that they may have. You're welcome to put your questions in the text box, or you raise your hand and then I will pick you and ask you to pose your questions verbally. But for the benefit of me being the speaker of today's session, I think I want to go first and pose some questions to our colleagues. I will first start with Dr. Miral. Dr. Miral, so I want to find out, apart from UNICEF, are there any other champions for MND in the Congress of the Philippines in particular? Because it seems as if, or because obviously your presentation was not very, how would I say, you didn't have a lot of time to express exactly what you had prepared. I just wanted to find out, are there any champions that would support you to institutionalize M&E more broadly apart from UNICEF? And
yeah.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for the question. Actually, if you'll notice, the Philippine parliamentarians did not participate or haven't participated in any of the international conference. And I happened to participate in the Global Evaluation Forum in Parliamentarians Forum in Colombo, and that was my first encounter with monitoring and evaluation. Simply because there were no parliamentarians interested to attend, and I think this just goes to show the level of confidence that they have in terms of their knowledge of monitoring and evaluation. While our laws, actually, many of the laws that we have passed would always provide a provision there for monitoring and evaluation. But I think in terms of operationalizing it, we haven't done much, actually. So we have a number of laws that provides for mandatory evaluation, but none of this evaluation have been, many of these have not been attended to. So, at the moment, we're trying to enhance the appreciation and understanding of our legislators on monitoring and evaluation. And as of now, the UNICEF has been play a very important role because they have offered us some capacity building and enable us to actually funded my participation in these international conferences. And we're also grateful for the association of the Asia Pacific Evaluation Association, which was our partner in organizing regional conference here in Manila, so that our parliamentarians would be able to attend these conferences. We brought it here in Manila, and we were able to convince the speaker to host this. And I think the speaker really appreciated, or this was his first time to see that there's this attention being given to monitoring and evaluation. So as of now, I think we have the chance to demonstrate to our parliamentarians the need to operationalize monitoring and evaluation in relation to the different legislation that it has passed, as well as applying monitoring and evaluation information in the approval or the review and approval of the national government budget, which is a major function of the Philippine Congress.
Thank you very much, Dr. Miral. And we trust that the new bill that has been put in place will definitely create a demand for M&E going forward. Thank you for that. I just want to move on to my next question, which is to Ms. Watera. Ms. Watera, so you do mention the peer-to-peer learning workshops and initiatives that you have participated in your capacity or representing Uganda. I just wanted to find out from you, what are some of the benefits of the peer-to-peer learning approach of these workshops and trainings that you have undergone with different parliaments of different African countries? Thank you.
Okay, so I think my presentation reached your inbox. You can go to that specific page as I respond. Yes, so we've been able to, first of all, have an understanding, like a shared understanding of how evaluation is, like the uniqueness of the institutions of parliament in undertaking evaluation and how evaluation influences the functioning of parliament. And in coming out of this, we developed the parliamentary oversight tool out of one of these engagements of peer-to-peer learning, because we wanted to have like a shared knowledge or starting point for us to say, if we are conducting oversight, what are the basics that we want to see? So we developed jointly the parliamentary oversight tool, which is called POT. And we have also been able to maintain our WhatsApp group. So anytime someone has a question that they want to ask about their parliament, anything that relates to how they are working, they easily pop a question and say, I have such and such a question that I have for you. How do you help me in this area? So in a way, it's a casual kind of networking that when someone needs information, we know that we can always avail. And then also it has given us an opportunity to be able to touch into others like databases, websites. So anytime I have some need, I want to study something, I easily pick it from maybe Parliament of Kenya, something on their website, because they have a very rich website. So it becomes a starting point for me, because I have someone in there who already knows where this information is found and who is willing to, like, help me, hold my hand and say, you need this kind of information, find it here. So the network has created, a synergy, a family, a community of practice for parliamentarian staff that we can work together. One last one is recently when the IPU needed to develop the indicators for the SDG 16, they started with that group, that peer group that has done. Yes, so you can stop on this one. So that peer group that has been working together to seek our input into the development of the SDG 16 indicators and framework for assessing how parliaments are functioning against the 4 core roles of parliament. So it is something that we are still running. We started with it, you can see, in 2018, but this family has continued, growing. We are still together and reaching out to each other whenever need arises. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Doc, do we have any more questions on the chat?
Thanks, Buffet. Sorry, I don't have my, I think I've got a new Zoom kind of platform. It's been renewed, so I don't know how to raise my hand. But on the chat, I haven't seen anything, but I also have some questions if you may, Chair, through you.
Please go ahead.
Okay, and I'll keep monitoring the chat. So just to start off, Chair, with some general comments on what is quite an important topic, because I think as Dr. Miral started off when he was giving initial remarks, there's been some time where I think evaluation capacity building, specifically for parliaments, has sort of dwindled. I'm not sure if it's the COVID effect, but I think there's quite a myriad it's quite a cocktail of factors that have led to diminishing focus on parliaments with regards to evaluation capacity building. But when I was speaking to, I think we were at the Morocco Global Evaluation Forum in February, and Dr. Miral happened to be part of the panel. He was probably the only person representing Parliament because it was quite a government-heavy program. And one of the questions he struck in Rabat was that, why is it that there is this disproportionate focus on governments? Because as far as he understands it, state power in any country is disseminated into 3 institutions. There's government, which is in charge of planning and sort of implementing development. And then parliament forms a very important part of development outcomes in a country, simply because parliament is the custodian, essentially, of accountability in the nexus between government and parliament. So he was asking, why is it that the evaluation community maintains this heavy focus on governments when at the end of the day, parliamentarians and essentially the institutions are the ones who hold government to account? So that stuck with me. And Parfait, you will know, and I think it will make Madam Josephine quite happy that Twende has actually resuscitated this work. And I saw you actually mentioned quite a bit on peer learning forums, because I see from your presentations, Madam Josephine, that there's quite a correlation between exposure of national parliaments to peers continentally. And that also sort of improves then the championing of evaluation, because the more you expose parliamentarians to evaluation learning forums, I think the more you sort of try to influence the uptake of this wave of demand for evaluations, demand for monitoring reports as part and parcel of government oversight, and so on and so forth. So looking at the Uganda M&E system, I think it's one of those on the continent where you can say, even though the government of Uganda has established quite an advanced M&E system, Parliament has not been left behind in that, because the Parliament of Uganda is also quite a big champion of M&E in the country. So I think a lot of that, let me just attribute partially to say, I think the appetite that Uganda parliamentarians and even parliamentary staff, they have this unquenchable appetite to go on to these learning forums, APNODE and so on. Madam Josephine is a student here in Cape Town. I'm not sure if she has met many parliamentarians from the South African Parliament who are part of APNODE. But if you were to compare essentially the Ugandan parliamentarians and their joining of sort of like evaluation forums internationally, I think there's quite a positive spin-off for the M&E system. So that's what I could master from the two. And also Dr. Miral, as someone who sits in the administration of Parliament, because often at times, as people who work in evaluation capacity building, we think that Parliament is only members of Parliament, elected politicians, but there's much more to the institution than just the politicians. Dr. Miral and Madam Josephine are quite influential in the institution, in parliamentary institutions, because they are more permanent than the elected officials they serve. And I think through their participation, they're able to have that positive spin-off in terms of when they deal with their parliamentarians or engage with them to sort of promote evaluation as a progressive force to improve development outcomes. So I think my two questions, Chair, to get to them, I just had to respond to the presentations because there was quite a contrast, but I could sort of see the synergies. So my two questions to both the panelists, and I note Madam Josephine's intimation that Parliament of Uganda is actually one of those parliaments that commission evaluations, particularly diagnostic evaluations. But the two questions I have is, besides reports from government, what are the evidence sources that parliamentary portfolio committees rely on when holding government institutions to account in the various portfolio committees? So that's the first question. The second one is, what is the frequency of commissioning diagnostic scientific studies, not just evaluations, but even research studies and so on, when Parliament is considering laws to sort of promulgate to the nation? And Madam Josephine will probably be quite familiar with one of the massive challenges we have across the continent, where we have a huge percentage of African youth that are out of work, that are sort of disenchanted with development. And I think historically parliaments have held that power to sort of ameliorate populations, especially population groups. So what could be, I think what could be the role of parliaments in sort of instigating sort of the pacification of the youth, so that they are actually not marginalized economically and socially, but they actually become active agents in their own destinies to live a good life. So I'm just asking about the frequency with which you could maybe commission those diagnostic study on issues on youth unemployment, youth disenchantment, and maybe any possible laws you could formulate to sort of counteract whatever issues the youth are facing that make them so susceptible or at risk of economic marginalization. So thank you very much. Those are my questions.
Okay. I guess I will put those questions to our speakers. I do not see Dr. Miral.
On.
Yeah, Josephine, while you are here, would you like to respond to the comment and question?
Okay.
So thank you.
I can start. So in terms of the youth, so Parliament approved an initiative to put in place a youth livelihood program around 2013 that it became operational in 2014. And we got a lot of concerns. The youths were petitioning, there were complaints, this program is not working, it's supposed to address youth unemployment. So Parliament initiated a study through the Department of Research to do an informative evaluation. So we've done an informative evaluation, and then they asked the Ministry of Gender to also undertake another evaluation. And then we also had one from the Office of the Prime Minister. So all these three evaluations have made their way into the Committee of Gender, Labour and Social Development in Parliament, and in a way influence the decisions that have been taken so far now in redesigning the program and managing access to funds and recoveries for this program. And we see now it opened the doors for more youth being part of this program. So that's one of the initiatives or interventions that the Parliament has done, and I think it will relate with what are the other alternative sources. So we work closely with the Office of the Auditor General. Also, Auditor General made a contribution to this study on issues that concern the Youth Livelihood Program and the Equal Opportunities Commission. So we work with the independent bodies of Parliament, of government. We work with the academia to bring in information. We work so much with civil society organizations, specifically one organization called CSBAG that does analysis on the different sectors of the government on the budget, and they appear on every committee whenever Parliament is having sittings on budgeting. Lastly, about the frequency, it is surely need-based. So sometimes it is quick, sometimes it is not. Sometimes it also depends on the level of the politics in it. So I can't put a timeline to this. There are things that will get a lot of attention and people will say, let's have an evaluation for this. There are others that come on a soft landing when there's already political will to have the law in place, so they will not see the reason why they should ask for an evaluation. So it depends. but oftentimes we do that. Thank you.
Okay. In the case of the Philippines, I think our legislators understand the importance of evidence-based policy making and conducting oversight. But while they appreciate the importance of evidence-based, the problem is there are simply no available evidence or data to begin with. And the generation actually of the information and data for the conduct of oversight and for evidence-based legislation actually comes from the government. It's not something that the parliament legislature produces, but it's something that the government is expected to produce. And monitoring and evaluation is a very good source of base for evidence-based decision making and policy making, because it's squarely focused on certain policies and programs, unlike academic research that only tangentially addresses a specific problem or a specific policy or program. But when the parliament, when it talks about a specific policy or a legislation that is needed to address a given problem, of course, these are not new problems, and there are existing laws that already tries to address this problem. And if there's a good monitoring evaluation of these laws, then it gives you an idea of what would be the needed change, as well as in the implementation of programs and projects in the budget. You'll be able to assess or evaluate what programs works and what do not work. If you have a good monitoring and evaluation system, if you have the information. But unfortunately, it's not Congress or Parliament that produces this information. It's really the government agencies that is expected to produce this information. Unfortunately, the assistance being given to monitoring and evaluation by the different we have to agree. I think we can agree that many of these reforms, like the emphasis on monitoring and evaluation, is being introduced to us through the different multilateral institutions like the UN agencies when it comes to monitoring and evaluation. But many of these agencies, multilateral agencies, deals mainly with the executive, with the executive, with the government, and hardly considers the parliament or the politicians, because they have been having difficulty engaging with politicians. But that's something that they have tend to overlook, is that when we talk about parliament, it's not only the elected officials that constitute that institution. And if you look at other advanced or mature democracy, we can see the role being played by the bureaucracy in the parliament, like in the different parliamentary budget offices or congressional budget offices, the different research institutions. These are, and which are highly professionalized. These are really part of parliament in order for it to be effectively carry out its monitoring and evaluation function. And as pointed out by Dr. Ayabaleli earlier, we in the secretariat or in the bureaucracy that support Congress appreciates the importance of monitoring and evaluation, but unfortunately, there's really a great imbalance between the assistance being provided to the government and those in the parliament, which are supposed to hold the government to account. We're supposed to represent the demands, or represents the people who are supposed to be the customer or the user of the goods and services that's supposed to be provided by the government. So I think that's something that needs to be addressed, and there should be like a deliberate effort to to establish a system that capacitates all the players, all the stakeholders when we talk about monitoring and evaluation. As we see, both the government and the parliament, as well as maybe the judiciary, would have a role to play in terms of development. They have their own information needs so that they can actively participate. But unfortunately, the system is not there in order to provide the information to the different stakeholders. And that's why we're emphasizing that a system has to be built in order that the needed informations will be produced, and the different stakeholders would have access to this information, so that they can play a role in terms of to effectively perform their functions within the system. Because after all, our system is built on a system of checks and balance, where the different branches of government needs to cooperate with one another, because no single agency of the government can carry out what is needed in order to effect development. It needs really the participation of the different branches of government, and all branches of government has to be capacitated, especially when it comes to monitoring and evaluation.
Thank you, sir. Good doc. Do we have any more questions?
Thanks, Chair. I think we've got a message from Abba Dahiru, who's joining from the Nigerian Parliament, and I think they're essentially asking Madam Josephine to add them to the parliamentary WhatsApp group. And I essentially asked her to also email me, so
Okay.
maybe introduce her formally to Madam Josephine. And then there was Alex, who's joining from Rwanda, just introducing himself essentially as a consultant who play quite an important role as well in evaluations on the African continent. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, well, I guess for my side, I'm done. I just want to invite you then, as the program manager of Twende, just to have final few words. We are 1 minute of our time, and then just to thank our speakers and to wrap up. Thank you, Doc.
No, thanks very much, Chair. I think let me start with yourself for stewarding the conversation quite well. Thank you very much, Parfait. And to our speakers, Madam Josephine, quite a stellar champion of monitoring and evaluation, not just for parliaments in Africa, but just essentially being an advocate of M&E internationally. So always appreciate to have you in such platforms. And I think what might interest you, Madam Josephine, is that we were actually holding this webinar as a starting point because we want to kickstart that work with parliaments. And we actually have a component in our 2024 to 2026 work plan where we want to resuscitate this work, working with yourself, APNODE, and any other continental kind of platforms that advocate for evaluations in Parliament. So that should be something that interests you. And Dr. Romulo Miral, all the way from the Philippines in the evening. Thank you very much for your time, Doc. Thank you for giving us the Philippines experience to juxtapose with Madam Josephine's Ugandan as well as African kind of context with regards to evaluation capacity building. And maybe, Doc, we could have you in some physical kind of activity that concerns parliaments. Because once again, we're opening up our evaluation capacity building offerings for parliaments, and maybe you could be someone to give that East Asian kind of experience in one of the activities we have planned. But I think, Parfait, from my side, we'll be in touch with Madam Josephine regarding our plans regarding parliaments. It's a pity we don't have Honorable Adomaho because he's the president of APNODE, and it would have been nice to also have him as part of these conversations. But a webinar is never enough. We'll have those physical learning, peer-to-peer learning activities lined up for our parliamentarians. And yeah, have a very good evening, Dr. Miral, and wonderful afternoon, Madam Josephine. Thank you very much for your work.
It's a pleasure being here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, and bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye to everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.